I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Ro Kendall, first Vice President, standing in today for Pat Mycone, who is celebrating on the high seas somewhere. It's a private location, so we can't find her, but she'll be back soon. First of all, I want to welcome and introduce our past president of the Republican Club, Shirley Morgan. Shirley is right here. And Shirley was president for 10 years and is still very active in our club, I'll say. And Carol Blanchard's not here, usually. Oh, she is. Okay, good. Well, there's Carol Blanchard, and she's been president for 3 years. So our two ladies are here. So we want to really thank them. They have carried the torch of freedom. And also, I want to acknowledge our veterans. So please, if you can, and if you're here and you're a veteran, please stand up. We want to acknowledge you. And now I'd like to introduce Steve Thomason, who is our chaplain, and he will start us off with an invocation. Please stand.
Let us pray. Blessed are you, Heavenly Father, creator of the universe, who brings abundance to our tables this morning. With wars exploding in our world and violence in our university campuses, we look to you for answers, for peace. We yearn for your values to reign supreme in our troubled world. Provide for us, Lord, truth in our culture currently filled with deception and lies. Give us the direction to vote for and support the people and the issues in line with your will. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Steve. And you can remain standing because we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance next, and that will be led by Carol Blanchard. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our Americanism speaker is not able to be with us today, but we have Gail Anderson, who's going to stand in and read for us the words that Karen Blanco has prepared. So, Gail, would you like to do that? Thank you.
It says, every year I enjoy watching bald eagles in their nests via websites such as Friends of Big Bear Valley and explore.org. One can enjoy watching eagle pairs build up or refurbish their nests, sit on their eggs, feed fish to the eaglets, and to teach them to fly. The cameras are small and unobtrusive, so as not to disturb the eagle families, and the nature views in the background are beautiful. I highly recommend this relaxing pastime. Just Google bald eagle cameras and enjoy. This made me think, how did America come to choose the bald eagle for our national symbol? To use it seal, and in 1770 lasted 6 years and several people's design ideas. The new Continental Congress first chose 3 others to come up with a great seal design. Benjamin Franklin's design featured a biblical scene with Moses and Pharaoh, while Thomas Jefferson depicted the children of Israel and 2 Anglo-Saxon mythical figures. John Adams proposed a design depicting the mythical figure Hercules. Congress quickly nixed those ideas. 2 more committees, 1780 and the other in 1782, proposed designs, which were also rejected. Finally, the Secretary of the Continental Congress, a man named Charles Thomson, was asked for his ideas. It was he who made sure that the majestic American bald eagle was the focus of the front of the Great Seal. As a short aside, one of the famous stories tells of Benjamin Franklin preferring the turkey as the national symbol rather than the eagle. In a letter, Franklin wrote, "I wish the bald eagle had not been chosen, the representative of our country. He is a bird of bad moral character." The turkey, in comparison, though a little vain and silly, a bird of courage. Franklin never explained how he came to those particular observations, and later he actually proposed using a rattlesnake as our national symbol. At any rate, Thompson's bald eagle design was gratefully accepted by 3 short months was put into use. On the front of the design, the eagle holds a banner that reads, "E pluribus unum," which roughly translates as "out of many, one," and describes the formation of our nation out of 13 separate colonies. Covering the eagle's breast lies a shield showing 13 red and white stripes, which stand for valor and purity. A blue region on the shield represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. A cloud floats above the eagle's head with 13 stars, again representing the formation of our new nation from the original colonies. The eagle clutches 13 arrows in its left talion, representing war, and an olive branch in its right talion, which represents peace. On June 20th, 1782, approved and finalized the first Great Seal of the United States. The presidential seal resembles the Great Seal in that it also features an eagle. In 1940, President Harry Truman officially mandated the use of the eagle in the presidential seal. A native species of North America, the bald eagle is an impressive bird with a wingspan of 7 feet, who often reaches speeds of over 30 miles an hour. Flight. It builds its nest, sticks, grass, and feathers. These nests span 10 feet in diameter. In Native American culture, the eagle is a sacred being associated with wisdom, courage, and the divine being. When European settlers arrived in America, they were impressed by the bald eagle's grace and majesty. Currently, these are very hard times for our country when so many internal and external forces are trying to dismantle our freedoms, destroy our economy, and disenheart patriots like us who love America so much. Let's keep fighting for America. Let's take strength for this fight from the majestic bald eagle, the symbol of our best ideals: freedom, strength, perseverance, and courage. Thank you. From Karen Blanco.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Bill Sinclair, definitely someone who does not need an introduction to our community, but he is definitely not a stranger here. And here in Laguna Woods, he was part of the Emeritus program for 18 years. He was an Emeritus Institute lecturer, so he has a long record of connection with our community. And Bill was chairman and CEO of First Washington Bancorp, and that's an $18 billion bank holding company. Prior to First Washington, he was president of the American Federal Bank, Perpetual American Bank, New West Bankshares, and the Bank of Lakewood. Bill was a faculty member of the Federal Reserve System, the Mortgage Bankers Association, the AT&T School of Banking, and the Federal Financial Institutions Examiners Council, serving as an expert on mortgage and investment banking. He was a quarterly guest lecturer on economics and political issues at Northwestern University's Graduate School of Management. Bill was on the board of directors of the Fireman's Insurance Company, the Greater Washington Board of Trade, the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta, and Republic Mortgage Insurance Company. He's also on the Advisory Council of the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, Virginia. During the 1980s, Bill testified at the congressional hearings on banking legislation and deregulation in Washington, D.C. And in 1989, he became president of the Greater Washington Board of Trade and was elected to the Young Presidents Organization. From there, he ended up in California, where he became the executive vice president and CEO of Liberty Capital Markets in Newport Beach, and also served as president of the Corona Del Mar Chamber of Commerce. During the Vietnam conflict, Bill served as a commissioned officer in the U.S. Navy. And please help me and Sinclair. Thank you.
Before the virus invaded our shores, we built the world's most prosperous economy. The unemployment rate reached 3.5%, the lowest in a half century, reported being employed than ever before. Nearly 160 million people were running at that time with jobs. Jobless claims hit a nearly 50-year low. Think about that versus how we've been with some other situations. At the same time, I've got the wrong glasses here. The number of people claiming unemployment hit its lowest level on record. Incomes rose in every single metro area in the United States for the first time in nearly 3 decades. Along with that, the bottom 50% of American households, basically 30% increase in net worth, going home for sure. The bottom 50% of American handholds basically saw a 40% increase in net worth. Jobs, victories, industries, and along with the USA, created more than 1.2 million manufacturing construction jobs that they bought home from Russia, China, you name it. Very interesting what took place. At the same time, this is Victor David Hanson. I'll bet you some of them know who he is. Pretty smart guy. This is what he said just recently. Better than alternative those who are trying to destroy our great country. We must have a sovereign border, and we need basically a country with good politics. That's good politics, okay? And a good economy, a real one. At the same time, now we have our border opened south and north. Think about that. Now, when Biden started that, it was kind of interesting. I kind of wondered why the Republican Party, because what he did by all of a sudden opening up, that's against a federal law. Does anybody know that? It could be part of the Constitution also. And I kind of wondered in a way that some of the people in the Republican Party, basically they could have gone after him, even though, look, you look at it in such a way that Obama, which turned it over to Biden, bottom line, they had the House, they had the Senate, and they had the White House, all three. But at the same time, there were people trying to the Republican Party to say what he's done is against the federal law. We should go after him for that. My question is, why didn't the party do that? Anybody see anything about that? Did you hear anything about maybe we should have done that because of what took place? And it's kind of interesting here because of what Victor David Hanson has to say. And he says now we're on a border open in south, north both, basically. And we're somewhere around 10 million, and they say maybe it's 12 million people that have come into this country. Do we know who they are? Do we know anything about them? Well, wait a minute. The way it used to be, remember how every year we would take in 1 million people to come to the United States. Do you know how many are in there now? They say a minimum of somewhere around 10 million They say that's going to go to 12 million. Now they're talking about the possibility of 15 million people. Do we know anything about these people? Nothing. Just in a couple of days ago, Biden comes out and says, I want to go to Palestine and bring 400,000 people over to the United States. Do you know who lives in Palestine along with the people themselves? Anybody heard a group by the name of basically ISIS? How about that? Do you think a lot of them are going to come in? You bet. Take a look at all the people that are coming into this country, and the point being, we don't know anything about it. There's a guy by the name of Christian who runs the FBI. I'm trying to think, his last name is Day or Way, whatever. Look, he's been on TV, he's been writing things. For what it's worth, look, there are people that are coming into this country, and he has said there's going to be some real surprises that they should be doing. Now, some of them are, but they're not doing it. It's real simple. In other words, if people are going to do something, especially the Jewish people, that's not fair at all. These people are they're at school, they're learning, and many things are happening now that what they're doing to the Jewish people is ridiculous. And the people running these colleges or the universities, it's real easy. All you do is you call the police and you let the police know we got a problem because there are people that are part of our school or our college, whatever, and they can't go from where they're staying over to the library or wherever. You can't do that. How many of these big, universities or colleges, how many have done that? Maybe a handful or something like that? Because it's real simple. You just call the police and tell the police, look, we've got to make sure that things are fair and that they're safe for these people over here. At the same time, anybody that walks across the wrong side, you take them to jail. You don't let them out the next day. Basically, you bring them, like you've probably seen your last couple of 3 or 4 nights, how many times which the police go in. I think it was Thursday night. Thursday night, for what it's worth, they took 300 people, and they either put the little sticks on them or the not really handcuffs, but they took 300 Tuesday night, and they took them over to jail. And the police, basically, right up there, did a great job to take all of these people, and they got them over there. Absolutely. And a lot of people were saying, well, that's good because now they got them in jail, and maybe they're going to do what they have to do. Well, out of the 300, this guy that runs, he's the DA of the area there, up there. I forget his name. But anyway, he turns around the next day and says, let all 300 of them go today. Everybody remember that? In other words, the point is you've got a lot of stupid people running things. And one of the problems is, look, if they took these people, these 300, and they put them in jail and said, hey, for what it's worth, we're going to have to put you in jail, and then you got to go to court. And once you go to court, you might be here a little bit longer than what you like, period. But we're not doing that. In other words, it comes down to, somebody asked me the other day, he said, what do you think's wrong with the country? I said, it's real simple. They said, what? I said, for some reason, the United States has put the wrong people in charge of running this great country. That's the problem. And if we didn't do dumb things like that, if you go back to, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, on the 6th of January, 3 years ago, right? There were a lot of people that basically were out there. They went to jail. They're still in jail. Most of them are still in, look, the D.C. jail. I used to drive by it all the time because I had friends there. I'm just kidding. But the whole point being is that that is one of the worst jails, in the country. These people that did certain things that they shouldn't have done, they're still there. And they can't get out. It's kind of strange there. But what about these people within the the colleges and what's taken place there. My gosh, it's just kind of crazy. So I come back to the same thing, is we've made a mistake. If you go back, and I can't remember the name of the group, they're out of, I think, Pennsylvania. And they put together, they were brought to find out what's going on with the American public. Are they really aware, and do they understand what's going on with this country? It took them about 2.5 years to get all of it together. They came out with it about 6 or 8 months ago. Out of 360 million people, now you got to put anybody that's 18 or less, put them over to the side. But out of that group, the bottom line came down to 48% of the American public over the age of 18 hadn't got a clue what's going on. Now, I'm not saying that's for sure. This is just what these people put together and found out. And basically, the tragedy of the schools. Who owns the university? Well, I just gave you about 6 or 7 people that, yeah, they own a part of it. But that still comes down to, we have the wrong people running this country in most areas. There are good people on both sides, but then again, unfortunately, we got a lot of the wrong people. Some of them are just, I guess, just plain stupid. And you wonder about things that are, look, just the other day, I think it was Tuesday, Biden came out and he said, I'm concerned that there's too much money. Maybe some of you heard this, it was on Fox. He said there's too many white people that have too much money. Anybody see that or hear it? It was Tuesday. And he said the situation is we need to put something together to hit these people with a certain tax, and then that money will go over to the other people. Now, that's not going to go anywhere, but it just gives you an idea that things that keep coming out are crazy things. But what universities have done to what? Themselves. You know, a lot of these kids, parents are saying, look, it might cost me $90,000 to send you to school over there, but I want you coming home tonight and leaving, whoever it may be. So a lot of stupid things are happening. It's the same thing. Look what's going on in Texas. Abbott didn't fool around at all, did he? I mean, they had whatever it took. Anybody that gets out of line, you get down to those colleges and the universities, and you put them in jail, take them to jail, period. Now, that's going on down there. I don't know how long it's going to last, but one thing about Abbott, he wasn't going to fool around with it. And there happens to be, I think, two other states also. There's one of them, what's the lady's name? She's from South Dakota. She's very smart. And, yeah, the governor. And she's on TV quite often. She was on a new TV show, but now she says, we have so much going on here in South Dakota, we need more people to help. So she put on one of those helmets, and she said, guess what? I'm starting too. I mean, really, she's pretty smart. She knows what she's doing. But the whole point being, she has said more than I don't know how many times, in my state, if you break the law, they basically take you to jail. And then you go to court. And if you lose in court, then you go to prison. Period. She says it's really simple. Because everybody speaks English, I think, she said. But she's pretty bright. In other words, there are people out there that we should have in Washington, D.C. Because when you take a look at what's going on now, I don't know. How about all the money we've spent? Right now, we're at $34.6 trillion today. Just recently, we spent $1.7 trillion in some other deal. I don't know which one it was, but I'm just wondering, wait a minute, I thought you had to go to basically the House and the Senate to do these things. But the president doesn't do that, right? I mean, in fact, when we talk about the first time he took the shot at the students for $450 billion, and that was the first shot, And the point being, why didn't the Republican Party say that's against federal law? And it could be against the Constitution. But did anybody do anything? No. Why not? I don't know. You just kind of wonder. That's why I get to the point we just got the wrong people in the wrong side. Not to say what's going on in this area, not this area, but basically, I called him, well, yeah, everybody knows who Newsom is. This is kind of funny. Do you remember when Biden went over to Saudi Arabia? Now, this is about 6 months ago, I think. Well, he went, you know why he went over there? He went over there, he was begging for them to give oil or to sell oil to us. And there was something, I don't know, I guess they had dinner or they had lunch or whatever, but one of the honchos that works for the Saudi Arabia guys or whatever walked over to him and said, why are you here from the United States? And he said, well, I'm here because I would like for you to basically give us some oil because we need some. And this guy looked at him, and this was on Fox, and he looked at him and he said, well, wait a minute. It's my understanding that your country has more oil than all of the countries in the world. So why are you here? And Biden just walked away. I don't know. I know why. Because somebody had some kind of a cone, an ice cream cone. That was it. Because somebody asked me, he said, did you see him on TV? I said, yeah, I saw him. And he walked away. He said, why? And I said, it was, he could get ice cream there. And I'm just saying that, my gosh, with the things going on like that, in different situations, and also there's a lot of stuff now going on that sober up America. What do you think about that? It says here, whoops, the United States can't lead the free world with spending too much money. This was in a Wall Street Journal about 3 days ago. Are we spending too much money? Spending too much money there. Yeah. But I don't know, for some reason, I always thought you had to go to Congress and to find out whether we can do this or not. But that's not happening. In so many different situations, especially not only with the sober up America. When a nation loses its confidence, think about this. America and Israel have both experienced a series of setbacks leading to self-doubt. Do we have self-doubt in this country? You bet. Because we don't have the right people that are doing the right things, or other things are going through, and they take that a little bit further, and they say, let's see, we've let our nuclear force go down while Moscow and Beijing have expanded theirs, and they're going into offense with more nuclear weapons. And what are we doing? No, for some reason, it has been said by the president that we need to spend more money into the green people. Well, no, that's not it at all, because you got a lot of other people that used to be generals, used to be in the Navy, whatever, and many of them have said, no, look, we are behind at this point. We're getting behind, and we can't do that or let that happen. But for some reason, doesn't seem to look like we're going in the right area with the right people. Anybody familiar with a guy by the name of Jack Keane or Kellogg? Both of them. They're on Fox quite often. And Jack Keane himself said recently, he said, when they started basically sending those rockets and the missiles, we should take out where the bombing starts. We have the ability, we can do that, bang, just like that. We have the ability to do it, period. But the point we come down to is, gee whiz, it took a long time for us to really do anything maybe that was necessary, and it's still kind of crazy the way things are happening there. In fact, this is kind of interesting. Remember, when Trump called up President Xi of China. Now, this goes back about 3 years, maybe, 4 years, whatever. He called him up and he said, look, you know, I don't know you and you don't know me, but you play golf, don't you? And he said, yeah, I like playing golf. And he said, well, why don't you come over to Mar-a-Lago? I've got a little place there. And, you know, we can play golf and we can get to, you know, to meet each other because I'd really like to have time with you. And so she says, yeah, man, I'll come over. So he did. He went over and basically they played golf and whatever. And the last night before she went back to China, they had this great dinner, and this was a real long table and all these different people that were hot shots or whatever. And Laura Ingraham was invited to it. You all know who Laura Ingraham is. She's pretty smart. So she was there, and she was watching Xi and Trump, and they were just going back and forth and talking about this and that. And so all of a sudden, she says, Trump says to Xi, he says, have you ever had chocolate cake with icing on it? And he said, no, I never have. And he said, well, it's my favorite, and I'm going to see that you get some right now because we just finished dinner. So they came in with this great, terrific piece of well, you name it. I mean, it was beautiful. It was huge. It was big, had all kinds of icing on it and whatever. And so Trump leans over, and he says, look, I got to run for about 15 minutes. I'll be right back. Well, she thought he was going to the men's room. So 15 minutes later, he comes out, and boy, I tell you, there's Xi, and he's just eating this cake like you wouldn't believe. He's loving it. And the point being is that Trump turns around and says, look, I'm really sorry I had to leave you for 15 minutes, but I just had to send 69 missiles and rockets over to, I think it was Syria. And he said, because we knew that it was loaded with all the bad people, and some Russians were there too, so we got them all. She took the cake and pushed it over to the side, and he got really blue in his face or whatever. That's what Laura said. The point being is that he said, yeah, I'm going tomorrow, but I think I should go earlier. The point being is all of a sudden, with Trump, by the time he got back to Beijing or whatever, I'm sure there was probably some talk, they said, I don't know if it's true or not, that the bottom line is, let's don't mess with this guy. And somebody said, why? Because of the cake? And he said, no, it got nothing to do with the cake. But the point being is that all of a sudden, you know, a lot of people don't like Trump or whatever, but it was kind of interesting also because Biden has said several times, one of the things that I have a lot of problems with is the prior president made a mess out of everything. And when I came in 2021, whatever, I mean, it's taking me, you wouldn't believe the time it's taking me to get things right because of what he did to the country. Well, guess what? About a day or two later, it was all over a lot of the different areas that deal in money and stocks and bonds and whatever. And it says here, let's see, when Donald Trump left, bottom line for, I think it was maybe the money was 1.4% inflation. That was the one. 1.4%. That was inflation. Then the next thing was, what about the economy? The economy, when he left, was 6.5%. Now, let's see. Biden's done a lot better than that, right? It's just kind of very, very interesting that those things that are happening today, and as I say, look, we're going to find a way to get this thing done the right way because America is like that. That's the way we do things. And if all of these other countries think for some reason, you know, you hear this nonsense about we're going to go this way, we're going to go that way. No, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen to this country, period. It's just that we've got a couple of people that maybe just haven't got enough brains up here, and we got to get some new people in there. Look, right now it's either going to be Biden or it's going to be Trump. And I've just got a funny feeling that I think it's going to be Trump. Because everywhere he goes, it's incredible. I don't know how the guy does it, because he's in court all day long. And somebody said, yeah, but they get off at 3 o'clock. And they says at 3 o'clock, you know what he does? His airplane's right over a couple of streets away. And they get in that airplane and they go to places. Just this past Wednesday, he was at 2 places. I'm trying to think. Who was it? Wisconsin and Michigan, both of them. And when he goes in there, I mean, these people are going crazy about it. They can't stop. Point being is that even though he says, and he says this many times, he says, I will never stop. I will never not do what this country needs. And that's probably what's going to happen. So, kind of bottom line, but those are a few things that are happening today. Is it going to work? Yeah, it's going to work, because we're going to get the right people in the right places. And I can think of a lot of them right now. Anybody ever heard of a guy by the name of Mike Pompeo? Anybody like him? Yeah. Kind of interesting, because I'll tell you a little story about him. He went to, I'm trying to think, one of the schools, but anyway, he graduated, and he was in the Army. He was an officer. And the first thing he did is he went out and had I don't know how many different trains or whatever, anything that had to do with rockets or missiles or whatever. That's what he had to do. And he did it real well. Then all of a sudden he got out of that, and he and his brother went to Kansas, and they started some kind of a company that they were making a lot of money with. I'm going to stop in a second. But bottom line, all of a sudden out of nowhere, he says, you know what? He says, you keep running the place here in Kansas, because I'm going to see if I can get into basically a good deal within the House or the Senate or whatever. Well, he did. And next thing you know, he had been there for over a year, and a lot of people liked him because he was a smart guy. He was a nice guy. Next thing you know, Trump calls him up one day and says, look, I want you to come over here. I want to talk to you. And poor, Pompeo said, geez, I wonder what he did. So he shows up and he says, look, he says, what are you doing over there? And he says, I'm doing this and that. He says, well, knock it off. He said, I want you to run the CIA. Will you do it? And he said, yeah. So he did. Next thing you know, 6 months later, Trump gets on the phone to him again. He says, come over here. I want to talk to you again. So he said, geez, what did I do this time? He says, I want you to be the Secretary of State. Will you do it? And he did. He did something called the Quad, which we don't have time to get into that today. And also, he also did an awful lot in, certain different places. But the Quad ended up with a group of 6 different countries that were going to take care of the East and the South China Sea. With that, I'll stop. Any questions? Good. Oh, one.
Of all the people that we have let, not us, but he has let come in, do you think they will be eligible to vote?
You mean the people that are coming in?
Yes.
They shouldn't be voting, no. Look, you've got to be an American, and basically you've got to vote, but you got to have
Green card.
whatever it takes.
Even if they get a green card?
Even if they get a green card. No, the whole point being, people that come in and to vote, you've got to go through whatever our country says. You can vote if you do this.
But they're getting driver's licenses. And when I renewed my license, at that time, it asked me if I wanted to register to vote. So it's tied into the two at the DMV in California.
There you go. That's one of the problems. Look, if you go back about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years maybe with Newsom, and California had a process of $25 billion right over here in the bank, okay? Guess where it is now? Well, all of a sudden, with what Newsom's been doing, the 25 went bye-bye and it went down to 30 billion. Now it just came up to 30.5 billion because I guess, you know, he's going to buy maybe something he thinks he's going to go to the White House soon. Interesting. Any other questions?
There are around 13 states that want to change the election to the national popular vote. In other words, whoever gets the most popular vote in the whole country, that state will give all their electoral college votes to that person, even though they may have lost in that state. And I think they only need 125 people, 125 electoral college votes in order to change to that particular thing. In other words, it would get rid of the electoral college. And what's strange is that some of the states, the smaller states then, won't have any say at all. There'll be around 6 states, California, New York, Texas, Illinois, there's no reason for their candidates to even run to other states when those states will determine who will be elected. What's your opinion on that?
It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. In fact, as soon as Trump finds out about it, he's going to kill it, whether he's there or not. But something to have, you know, come on, that just doesn't make any sense. But then again, we got a lot of states that don't make much sense with things that go on. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am, in the back.
In case Democrats did do something, not allow Trump name on the ballot.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
In case Democrats do something to let Trump name not show on the ballot, in that case, what Republican will do?
I'm sorry, but I can't understand. What about that?
Okay, so she said,
okay. There's a lot of stuff going on around that, look, certain states are going to say, you can't come in here, basically, to say that to Trump. You can't come in here. Well, guess what? The Supreme Court has already said, no, you can't do that. Look, a state can't all of a sudden say, we're not going to let you in, Trump. And that's backed up by the Supreme Court. So just isn't going to work. Isn't going to happen. I think they're going to try everything they can, but I don't think it's going to happen. Yes, ma'am, right back there.
I'm going to kind of guess that she also wanted to know, in case Trump is convicted of a felony, whether it's been done lawfully or not, is there another Republican that would step into his position in our hope to have a Republican in the White House?
Yeah, there's about 50 of them.
Right, and that's, I think,
Or
you know,
maybe
who
60.
else? Who else would be the runner-up? Who would be your runner-up?
How about Tom Scott? Tom Cotton. There's a good guy. And how about the other guy from Missouri? Can't think of his name right now. I mean, those are just 2 people. Who? Josh Hawley. There's another smart guy. There's a couple of, anybody ever remember K.T. McFarland? Anybody ever heard that name? Every morning when she gets up, she worked for, oh gosh, I'm trying to think. She worked for a lot of different presidents. But the bottom line is saying about her, every morning she gets up, she eats a whole bag full of nails. I mean, she is some kind of tough and she's smart. She's on Fox every now and then, and they always, when they know she's there, look out. And she lives in Florida now, but, I mean, that's one person I'd say she ought to run for the presidency. Because I think it was, oh gosh, who was it that she spent a lot of time with? Anyway, But yeah, there are going to be a lot of people. A lot of people are going to all of a sudden come to, basically, I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Pompeo showed up. A lot of people wanted him to run, and you probably saw several times, and his wife's name is Susan, and he'd say, Susan and I have been talking about me running for the presidency, and we just say this isn't the right time. Well, think about this. Look, he and Trump are like that. And the point being, I'm just guessing now, I just think that the bottom line was something along the lines of, you know what, Trump and I are like this, and I just don't want to go against him. I'm just guessing on that. But at the same time, if something, let's say something happened to Trump and he couldn't go, I think, good gosh, there's a ton of people that are Republicans from the Senate along with the House, some very smart people, men and women both. And they'll be standing in line saying, yeah. And the point being is, if Trump, for some reason, can't run or doesn't win, now think about this. If we go all the way back to 2020, do you remember there was a white van that started in New York? And this guy that was driving the van, he didn't know what was in there. And that van went from New York and it went into Pennsylvania. And everywhere it stopped, these people came out and they opened up the back, and they were these boxes with a whole lot of stuff in them. And then they'd take it out of one place, then they go somewhere else in Pennsylvania, and they'd put another box in there. Now, I don't know if there's any truth to this, but apparently that's just one state, that there was an awful lot of things that basically they were ballots that were not real. Now, maybe some of you know about that, or a lot of people talked about that there were an awful lot of ballots that shouldn't have been there. I don't know the bottom line, but there's going to be a lot of different things, more than likely, that are going to take place. But when we take a look at so many different things that we're dealing today, look at Israel today. You know, it's kind of funny because some of these nitwits that are out there from the universities and the colleges, and they're all saying, you know, we're going to get rid of Netanyahu, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Somebody ought to sit down with some of these nutcases and say, do you know why Netanyahu and his people are doing what they're doing? Because on October the 7th, those people went in and basically, look, bottom line, you all know this, they actually burned babies and they cut off some of the babies' heads. They also, I don't know, did who knows what to women, men, whatever, the bottom line. And the point being is Hamas comes along, and you've got all these people here in this country with these signs up that yes for Hamas, things like that. Well, the whole point comes down to, look, Netanyahu is going to make it work. It's going to take a little more while, but he's going to make it work. But the bottom line comes down to, do you expect that Netanyahu and these people are going to sit back and say, well, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to let things flow. Well, if you're not, Hamas is going to be coming back in another 6 months. People don't understand that. It's just crazy. Yes, ma'am.
I worked for Reagan when he went into
Reagan, that's who
When
K.T. McFarland worked for,
right.
Reagan.
When he went into Washington D.C., they had to put 4,000 people in jobs. We better get someone who's a governor who's very sharp, or someone that really knows what they're doing in Washington, because Bush was bad news.
Yeah.
Even though he was a wonderful sweetheart,
Yep.
he was bad news for the country. And so consequently, to me, if we could, I love Devin Nunes. I think he'd be marvelous. But we really need to get someone that can reach out. Trump's problem was he reached out to Bush people along with the left. So consequently, 4,000 people, everybody start putting your names in for jobs.
True. There's a Mr. Kennedy from Louisiana. He's with the Senate. Do you know who I'm talking about? I mean, I'll tell you, there's the guy. I'd like to see him step into the presidency because every time he's talking, he makes a lot of sense. And he, you know, at some times he really gets you laughing because he's got all kinds of things that he'd like to do. But that's just one of many. So I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to do something. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Bill. We've really enjoyed getting caught up with you, and we look forward to part 2. I'm sure there's a lot of new news that's coming along. So thank you.